Tight hips aren't just a flexibility problem, they're often a strength and stability problem too.
Here is what happens in your body that causes you to have tight hips. When your brain senses any instability or instability in your hips, it can actually react by tightening the muscles to protect you, meaning it shuts down your hip mobility.
The same goes for key muscles around your hips. If those muscles are weak, your body compensates by tightening nearby tissues.
Not only does the brain tighten your muscles when it senses instability, it also locks down movement to prevent injury when the stabilizers aren't firing properly.
You might be thinking, so what does all this mean? This means that tightness is often a protective response. So if you're only stretching without addressing the underlying weakness and instability, your body just snaps back to tightness after every session, no matter how much you stretch.
Now that you know the reason behind why your hips are tight, we can start working on fixing the strength and instability problem with these 3 essential types of exercises.
So the first type of exercise that we need to do to signal safety in the brain is mobilizing the hips with dynamic movements. Don't get me wrong, static stretches are great, but your body craves movement in all directions.
Not only do dynamic stretches let your hips move in all directions, but they also increase synovial fluid, which lubricates the hip joints, making overall movements way smoother.
It stimulates proprioceptors that tell your brain it's safe to move. Simply moving through different planes of motion wakes up stabilizing muscles that would otherwise get neglected in your usual static stretches.
So here are the 3 best dynamic exercises to mobilize your hips. The first one is hip circles, where you get on all fours and you move your hips in large circles, exploring full range of motion. Not only does this stimulate your hip stabilizers, but it also prepares your joints for deeper movements. You can also do these types of exercises in different shapes, like in standing or even laying on your back.
The second one is the well-known Cossack squats. For this, you're going to go into a deep squat position. From there, you're going to shift from one side to the other, opening the adductors and groin while strengthening through a full range of motion. If you're a yogi, you may think of these as Skandasana, side to side.
And you can also start to take these types of movements into a compass-like motion, where you go forward and on diagonals too. Therefore, you're covering all the mapping that your brain can do with your hips in all directions.
Last but not least, the 90-90 hip transitions, where you move between internal and external hip rotation. This enhances joint mobility and signals to your brain that rotation is safe.
Now, once you've increased mobility, the next step is strengthening the muscles that support your hips. If you have weak glutes, hip flexors, and adductors, this means that they just can't stabilize your hips. So as a result, this forces your body to compensate by tightening other muscles, causing that tight feeling.
That's why building strength is so important. Building strength improves neuromuscular control, making it easier for your brain to allow a greater range of movement.
Those strong muscles act as shock absorbers, as well as reduced strain on joints and ligaments.
Here are the best strength exercises to specifically strengthen your glutes, hip flexors, and adductors.
Single leg glute bridges, where you start lying on your back, and from there you're going to plant one foot, lift your hips up while keeping the other leg extended. This strengthens your posterior chain and improves your pelvic stability. Remember that if that's too hard, place both feet on the ground.
You can also use your fingers on your hip bones to just check that your pelvis isn't going a little bit crazy as you lift up. You want to try and keep it as level as possible.
The next one is your Bulgarian split squats. These are so tough. You're going to elevate one foot behind you, and then you're going to perform a deep lunge. This builds unilateral hip strength and challenges your stability.
Lastly, hip flexor marches, where you lie on your back, lifting one leg at a time while maintaining core control. This strengthens the hip flexors and teaches the pelvis to stabilize dynamically.
We can also turn this exercise into dead bugs, where we add our arms in. Moving opposite arm to leg as you do it will make sure that you start to mimic the exact same action that happens when you're walking, maintaining your stability.
And the final piece is stability, and to be more specific, pelvic stability. This part locks everything in place and prevents compensations.
Why do we need to do this? Well, your hips don't function in isolation. It's actually quite the opposite. They work as part of a connected chain with your core and your pelvis. So without proper core stability, your body starts to recruit other muscles to compensate, and that leads to tightness and inefficient movement patterns, and we definitely don't want that.
No, we don't. By activating the deep core stabilizers, such as the transverse abdominis, the pelvic floor, and multifidus, your brain will receive signals that the pelvis is secure. As a result, more freedom of movement in the hips will come. Here are some of the best exercises to train this stability.
The first one is hip flexor isometric holds, where you start sitting on the floor and then you're going to lift one leg slightly and hold. This challenges the deep hip and core stabilizers, improving that neuromuscular control in that position.
This is a really hard one. You can also do it from standing, right? And lift one leg as you're standing and work up to coming down to sit.
Now, the next one is one we've already mentioned. It's our dead bug variations. It's important to, of course, maintain that pelvic stability while you're moving your arms and legs. As we've mentioned, this is going to engage your deep core to prevent excessive movement around the pelvis when we then translate those movements up into standing.
And an indication that your pelvis isn't stabilizing in these movements is that it's moving, because when we have a neutral pelvis, we have a little space underneath our lower back. But if our pelvis is moving, that space gets bigger and then smaller instead of the movement coming from our leg.
And finally, we're going to add in some perturbation. This is so easy to do. You're going to tie a stretchy band to something secure like a door handle, and then you're going to hold onto it. You're going to press the resistance band forward whilst resisting rotation. This improves those anti-rotational stability muscles and strengthens your oblique and core, but it's also really good for the brain. And when the brain senses that you're stable, you've got it, you're going to have better hip mobility.
And there you have it, the 3 types of exercises that you need to get rid of those tight hips.
By focusing on not only flexibility, but strength and stability as well, you'll actually find more pieces of the puzzle to solve the problem from the root cause. I will just say one thing though, if you do these and you don't get amazing results, please remember everybody is different and there might be a missing piece of the puzzle that this video hasn't addressed. That's why we always strive to share as much varied information as possible on this channel, so stay tuned because the solution might be coming.
Now that you know how to fix your tight hips, you don't want to neglect those tight hamstrings. Check out this video here if you want to fix your tight hamstrings as well.